Welcome to Typecasting, where we're typing our favorite fictional characters on the Enneagram and taking on pop culture by the numbers.
Hello and welcome to the latest social season. I am not Lady Whistledown.
You can be Lord Whistledown.
Okay, I'll take it.
Should we do our entrance in our British accents? I don't think they're that bad. They're not good. But you actually lived in London, so.
I have a feeling that as soon as we say our accents aren't that bad, they're open to even more scrutiny. But
which
sure,
I'm
go
open
ahead.
to.
Go ahead.
Alrighty. Hello. That's your host, Lucas Craden. And he is... Oh, wow, I used that already last week, didn't I? Alright, give me a second. Alrighty.
Momentarily.
Alright.
I feel like Moira Rose.
Alright. Alrighty then. That's your host, Lucas Craden, and he would definitely be on the most people's dancing cards at the ball, considering he is the best dancer.
Why, thank you. I've really lost it today. Wait, it was too high. Okay. And that's your co-host, Majana Tumatua, who would definitely upstage Daphne Bridgerton in the Regency Bowls.
As of course. I've been watching too much Great British Bake Off, so it was way posh and like announcer voice. But I'm loving
that's
it.
the thing. My posh one isn't very good, but the Bridgerton is, I think, a very posh accent world. So
I think so too.
I think we killed it. You know what? That was flawless. There were no mistakes. We tricked everyone. Guys, plot twist. We have actually been British this entire time, and we are just pretending to be American. So really, the American accents are the true feat.
Bloody, you blew our cover.
Everyone is very glad that this is the final Bridgerton episode.
Just wait till we get to like Massachusetts. My Boston is killer.
Oh, I cannot wait. So, as we mentioned, this is the second and final for now episode on some more of our Bridgerton characters. Why don't you kick us off with the very first character today? Who are we talking about?
I would be happy to do so. And just again, a little bit of a reminder, non-experts, and this is spoiler filled. So if you haven't watched Bridgerton yet, I would just turn this off right now and wait for next week and sit tight. But first and foremost, we're going to talk about my favorite character of the series, easily the delightful and charming Penelope Featherington. Now, Penelope is one of 3 daughters of the Featherington household who has now come into the season and is eligible for marriage. She kind of lives in the shadow of her sisters, and I honestly feel like, and we'll talk about this a little bit with Marina later, she's kind of, that house just reminded me very much of the Cinderella vibe with the 2 ugly stepsisters who have like uglier hearts, but honestly, it's mostly like the environment they grew up in. I don't think it's really their fault, especially when you see Cinderella 2 and you get to know the stepsisters a little better. I was like, this is very giving me those vibes. But I think Penelope is interesting because she kind of is that third sister, and who has such a kind heart, because I think Marina would probably be the Cinderella of that story, and she is so in love with her neighbor, her best friend's older brother, Colin.
My best friend's brother is the one for me.
And there's a very interesting plot twist at the end of the film. So the entire time we have this gossip girl type figure, Lady Whistledown, who talks to what's going on in the town and gives us the latest and hottest tea, both metaphorically and physically. And so we find out at the end that Penelope is the one stirring up the pot the entire time. And she has a little bit of Petty Crockerness, if you know what I mean, stirring up that pot.
XOXO.
Perhaps I will come forward one day. Though you must know, dear reader, that decision shall be left entirely up to me. Yours truly, Lady Whistledown.
Tea has been spilled.
Mm-hmm. So, Lucas, tell us, what do you think? What is Penelope's Enneagram?
Okay, so I'm really excited to hear what you have to say because I think this is a little weird. But I will say, I think that I drew a lot of inspiration from that reveal. And I just have to say, I don't know about y'all. I called it in like episode 5. I need everyone to know. I kind of saw it coming. When she like blows up at Eloise, because Eloise is trying to figure out who it is.
She is a single woman of means. Better yet, she is a widow who would be invited to all of the events, but not paid any attention. So while you were at the ball...
Eloise, I do not care. People have real problems, mature problems that have nothing to do with the secret identity of some silly writer.
And you are so mature now.
Well, I am of age. I am out in society. Therefore, I have more important, mature things to worry about.
Like what?
Like marriage.
You do not care about marriage.
Well, what if I do? I cannot expect you to understand. Not everyone can be a pretty Bridgerton.
Obviously, she was upset, but there was something more under the surface. And that quality of holding so many of her true feelings and emotions under the surface actually led me toward maybe the type 5. I think that 5s, more than almost any number on the Enneagram, we see have things going on in their head that nobody else knows about. And they can live in their head in a very private and secure way. And 5s gain security from feeling like they know everything and they can acquire that knowledge. And I think it's really interesting to see how Penelope is using her skills of observation to kind of fade into the background, but then weaponize her sense of invisibility against all of these other people in this kind of corrupt society. And so I kind of see her as like the one with her like notebook hidden behind her back, like just taking in as much information as she can and then using that information to wield as her power. And so it was definitely her identity as Lady Whistledown that led me toward the type 5. However, I think she's a 5-wing 4, maybe a 4-wing 5. I think that she has those feels. She obviously is a romantic. She's in love with Colin. And as you mentioned, she grows up in the shadow of her family. And so I think that we see some of that type 4, that sense of not belonging, not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy. And so I'm starting with the 5-wing 4, but I'm not sure. She's an interesting character. What do you think?
That is so interesting. So I was in a similar place. So I was in a similar place in the Enneagram in that corner where I was trying to decide between a 4 and a 6. And so a 5 actually kind of makes sense. I do believe that she feels incredibly misunderstood. And the difference that I was seeing was how she internalizes it. And I think one of the beautiful things about Bridgerton is it's a coming of age in a way we've never seen before. It's not, the grungy indie kids in our day and age learning about themselves and who they are. It's people learning about themselves and who they are and taking action and kind of getting some agency in their lives. But we're like in the early 1800s. So I think that's what's like so interesting because I thought, I think she's a 6. She seems incredibly loyal to her friend, but then her and Eloise start to kind of break apart. And even though she's loyal, she's not sure what to do. And she's also quite loyal from the get-go to Marina. She is kind, she is thoughtful. But then kind of when we hear the end, you're like, whoa, she took agency and decided to make something of what she wanted and was kind of willing to do anything for love. I think I would lean more towards the 5-wing 4 or the 4-wing 5 when I consider like how she's changed. I think maybe she had some 6 tendencies and then like we see them realize and that's not necessarily who she is. I like the 4. I think she's truly misunderstood by her family. And she also is incredibly poetic with her words. And that's like an art form, right? To be able to write what she does as Lady Whistledown. And no one has any idea who she is. And Eloise even speaks to like her accomplishments in doing that. And I think it's because she's a 5 and observant and takes in information and makes it useful to her. And then I think she's a 4 because I think her motivation is because she doesn't necessarily have an outlet to be understood and known. So she puts that mask on as Lady Whistledown. That's kind of, so I'm in the 4 wing 5 area, 5 wing 4. I'm not for, the 5 doesn't sit completely right with me, but I can see it.
I will say, I think too, the 5 is, I think, a type on the Enneagram that sometimes struggles to verbalize or express their emotions. And even though Pen does keep a lot like close to her chest, one of the things that she does not keep close to her chest are her emotions. Like, she is definitely somebody who like lives in her feelings and is motivated by her feelings. When Eloise is talking about the only story in Whistledown that was not public, like at an event or something, was about Marina. And that was like motivated personally by her trying to protect Colin and her wanting to be with Colin. And so I do think like she has that. I like that point about the 6 though, and those relationships, especially with Marina. And actually the more that I think on her and Marina's relationship, I'm like, is there some 2 there? But maybe if she's that type 4 who moves to the 2 in stress and takes on some of those negative habits of the 2, because, and this is me speaking 100% to myself, when I find myself in unhealth, and this was one of the reasons I knew I was a type 4, we moved to that 2, and 2s as the helper, they can be very possessive over their relationships and also manipulative and empathetic. And 4s and 2s are both empathetic in a way that they can often use that to wield power over other people. And I think that she is somebody who has her pulse on the people and the goings on in the town. So absolutely. I think I like your little nod towards the 6, and I kind of see it, but I think it's actually, I'm even more solidified on that 4 now.
Me too. Oh, welcome. And she's my favorite character. Do you think she's your favorite character?
I think so. I think there are some characters in the future that could take that top spot, but yes, especially in season 1, I love Pen. It also was not until the final episode that I realized her nickname is literally Pen, and she's the one writing the papers. We really should have seen it coming.
I was just thinking, yes. It's just fun because 4 is our favorite. So
our favorite. And I find we made it to season 2. I finally have somebody on my side here in that 4 wing 5.
Yay! Congratulations. All right, Lucas, who's up next?
Oh, who is up next? Listen, I do love Penelope, but I love Eloise Bridgerton. So she is the second eldest Bridgerton daughter, and she, similar to Penelope, actually finds herself in the shadow of Daphne. But actually, I think Eloise finds freedom in that. She does not want to stick with the status quo. She is not interested in marriage. She is not interested in men. She just wants to write and to be free and to travel and explore and learn. And so she feels trapped a lot of the time in 1813 society and the expectations that are put on her to be a proper lady.
And having a nice face and pleasant hair is not an accomplishment. Do you know what is an accomplishment? Attending university. If I were a man, I could do that, you know. Instead, I shall have to stand by and watch dear Mama appear proud because some man should like to admire my sister's face and hair and fill her up with babies.
And so we also find her as the main character throughout this season on the quest to find out who Lady Whistledown is. Because whereas Queen Charlotte wants to find Whistledown's identity because she's upset with her, Eloise reveres her and looks up to Lady Whistledown and the way that she has been able to transcend her position as a woman in this society and make something more and do something more for herself. And so I love Eloise. I love her and Benedict's relationship because they both feel like outcasts in their families, where they're sitting outside smoking on the swing or whatever. But I love me some Eloise. I want to know, what do you think her number is?
Okay. I don't even feel like I need to rationalize myself. I'm so sure about this one. I think she's a 5-wing 4. She loves information. She loves to eat it up. She wishes she can learn more and do more with that information. She is absolutely an observer and as an actual investigator, for half of the series, trying to figure out who Lady Whistledown is. And I think she also has that misunderstood idea of the world. And I think we see her as a romantic in the fact that she is consistently daydreaming what her life would have been like if she were a man, or if things were different, or if society was different, in a way that I often find, I think both of us romanticize what could be. And I think that's like there's a part of us 4s that we hear romantic and we think like, oh, they just want to be in love. And it's like, also though, like, I think you and I have lots of discussions of what we think the world and nation should be, right? Because like we romanticize things and we can figure out what the best path to that is.
Yes.
And she appreciates she's in the library during the ball, which makes me think she has that 5 more than that 4.
My goodness.
But
you cannot
I do
see
think
me.
she's a 5-wing 4.
You cannot see me right now, but my jaw is on the floor. Like literally, I was holding my mouth open the whole time you were talking. I love it. I love it so much.
What do you think? Do you agree?
So I do. When you started and you were like, I don't even need to rationalize this. Like we both know, like we know where she's at. I was like, yeah, definitely. She's also a 4-wing 5. Duh. Like in my head. And when I think about Eloise and her kind of place in the season, I was like, oh, she's definitely a 4. But as soon as you said 5-wing 4, I don't know why it did not connect for me before, but everything just clicked into place in a way that I was like, oh my gosh, yes, like 100% she's a 5-wing 4. She, as the investigator, like, I don't know why I'm so excited, but that literally makes so much sense to me. I totally see it. And I love me that kind of gap of existential crisis in between the 4 and the 5 and in between the head and the heart triads. She's definitely in that little area of melancholy there with just like you said, like wishing life was something other than what it is, and always kind of feeling not at peace with her station in the world and things like that. But she is the investigator, the journalist. She is digging down for more information, and she wants to travel and learn for that information and things like that. Wow.
Absolutely.
I feel like I just had like an out-of-body experience when you were talking about it. I don't know why, but man.
I love that.
What a beautiful, beautiful like character and type pair. I love that.
She really is. And I love their friendship, Penelope and Eloise. And I really hope we get more of that in the seasons to come. Because I think they're entirely lovely, and we saw they're growing up, so I think we saw a lot of that heartache that often comes in lady relationships, because I think that's like so often for a lot of people, your first love is your best friend across the street. And we definitely saw some of that turmoil, but I'm really excited to see more of them together, and I love the little glances they steal at each other when they're about to have their huge coming out to the queen, and they're just precious friends.
Yes. I think they like find that kinship in like not fitting in and not belonging.
Remind you of anyone we know?
Not off the top of my head. No one I can think of.
Love it.
Our favorite. Well,
I am so excited to introduce our final character. The I don't know, what's like I prefer emeralds to diamonds. So she's probably like the emerald of the season.
The emerald of the season.
Yes. Anyone listening who wants to propose, just say no. is Marina Smith. So she is a long lost family member of the Featheringtons who comes in to be married off. But the thing about Marina is she's already in love, although she has like hundreds of suitors, which fall to her feet after they kind of see Daphne is previously engaged, even though it's mostly her brother's fault, and you know that's a discussion for another pod. Marina is here and showing up and has so many people interested in her hand, but she's in love with someone from home. We find out in her main story arc is the fact that she is pregnant and needs to be wed as soon as possible so that the scandal is kept under wraps, because that could ruin her in this society. And one of the people who takes interest in her is Colin Bridgerton, who is, as we discussed earlier, Penelope's crush, her love. And so when he wants to take interest in her, Penelope actually ruins Marina by exploiting that she is pregnant. And it's very complicated and confusing. And in the end, she ends up marrying the brother of the man who impregnated her, because the man who impregnated her did die in battle. So it's really sad, really confusing storyline. I had a hard time with this one as someone who loves the period pieces. I understood the challenge of what she was going through. And the thing about Marina that I thought was so fascinating is she always chose love. Like she was always choosing George. And I was like, do you even know? Have you not read Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility? You have to get married. Like, do it quickly. Like, who cares about your love? And I thought it was really cool that she did that. So I'm really curious what all of that means for you, Lucas, and what you think her Enneagram type is.
Yeah, that's a good question. The thing that stood out to me about Marina's character throughout season 1, she will do whatever it takes, I think. And I think that we see that even with Colin, where she and Penelope fight over it, but she is like, if I need to find a husband, then I'm going to find a good man. I'm like, and she will trick that man into marrying her without knowing that she's pregnant.
He is my friend, Marina. I have known him forever. And I do not want him to be tricked and deceived into a lifelong commitment. You must not do this to a good man.
Well, should I perhaps entrap a bad man, then? Perhaps you would find it acceptable for me to live my life with a man who treats me like a mere beast.
Look, I only
What
need...
am I to do, Penelope? I will be a good wife to Colin, and he a good husband and father. However young and well-liked by you he may be.
And it breaks my heart at the end of the season when Colin tells her that if she had been honest with him, he would have married her.
Mm-hmm.
How sad. But I think that she has this ironclad will. She will look Lady Featherington in the face and tell her no, which is not something a lot of people will do, especially when you are living off in their home and off of their food and things like that. And she refuses to back down to Lady Featherington, which I think is really indicative of her character and of that strong will that she has. And for some reason, and if we agree, then maybe you are going to be better at explaining this than me, but for some reason, I was drawn to the type 1, which is a little interesting, but ones as like reformers, as perfectionists have, I think, that commitment. We talked last week about the Duke of Hastings and how he as a 1 is like committed to his word. I think similarly, when ones adopt a belief system, whatever that like highest belief or highest value is, nothing can make them back down from that. And I think that, as you mentioned, for Marina, that's love. And so for her, she is like, love is my thing. I will not settle for anything less. And then she does refuse to settle. And which is, I think, what's really sad about seeing where she ends up. And I think that hopefully they have a happy life, but it is sad to see her lose her lover, lose Colin, and then end up with the brother of her dead soldier boy. But
soldier boy, you know.
Yes, I know. As soon as I said it, I was right back in middle school, like 7th grade gym dances. But Yeah, I kind of feel like maybe she's a 1, just in a way that she is like, I'm going to plant myself here and like, you will move for me. I will not move for you. But I'm not sure. Like, it's a gut feeling more than a logical thing. So I want to know what you have to say.
Well, when you said that I'm going to stand firm like a tree, it reminded me a lot of our Captain America discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel similarly to I think ones do the right thing because it's the righteous thing to do, and it's almost written down. You know, it's their code of ethics, but most people would agree it's the right thing to do, but might factor other things in where ones have a harder time doing that. Where I think 8s, a lot of times, it's just that gut reaction. I'm not doing this. I love him. And how passionate an 8 is, and how often and frequently Marina stands up to Lady Featherington.
Yeah.
And is like, absolutely not. This is what I'm choosing to do. Or I think a 1, if there's a code of ethics and it's the fact that when you're married, you have to get married quickly, I think she would have considered it as a more viable option. And Marina was like, absolutely not.
That's a good point.
It's not what I'm doing. It's my gut.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that Marina, and not that 8s are inherently, this is not like a factor of 8s, but I do think Marina is very, it's a self-serving decision. I don't think it even really considers her, like when the time is running out, she needs to be considering her baby better, and Colin a little more frequently as well. But I don't think I think it's just that gut and initial reaction for her. So which leads me to say, I think she's an 8, and I can see how she might have that wing 7 much more so than the 9, because she's so frequently standing up to people, or the 2, where I think she would have considered people a little bit, other people's feelings more. Even if it wasn't like absolutely correct, I think that's what she would have done. So I would sit actually in the 8 wing 7, where she loves the attention. She loves the balls. She's like having a good time, but also knows at the end of the day that George, her soldier boy, I'm putting in quotes, air quotes, how he feels.
Okay. Yeah. I definitely feel the 8 as you say that. And one turn of phrase that was like in my head as I was thinking about and talking about Marina was force of nature. And I think that is like very in line with the type 8. 8s are forces of nature in really cool ways. And so I could definitely see the 8. I'm not sure that I see the 7, but I don't feel strongly, I think, about either wing. The thing with Marina is that we see her in a very like hard time in her life. Like she is in a lot of stress. She is away from the man that she loves with these people she doesn't know. Then she finds out she's pregnant and she's like being treated like she needs to go to be on the market as a piece of property instead of an individual. And so I think that like we see her a lot in that 8 and in that like no you move, speaking of like Captain America. But I'm not sure I really see the 7, just because I don't think she's in a position where she's having a lot of fun in general, which is like indicative of the type 7. So I think that I could, I think I could be convinced of the wing 7 or the wing 9, but I definitely see the 8.
I think what it was more for me was that I could absolutely not see the 9, and I absolutely could not see the 2.
I don't think that, because I think you mentioned like, oh, she like confronts people, so she can't be a 9. The thing about the 9s, I think that 9s, they don't like conflict, but I think when you pair them with the 8, an 8 wing 9 wants to resolve the conflict. They want to talk about it, because that wing 9 means that they don't want there to be a problem. So the 8 will drive them to talk about it. So I don't think that an 8 wing 9 would refrain from having those difficult conversations or like standing up for themselves, even though they have that wing 9. I think that the wing 9 actually gives them the opportunity to like take stock of the full situation and say, okay, we need to sit down and have this conversation. And because I'm an 8, we're going to have the conversation, you know, like. But
I just never felt like she did that either. And I think I think of it really in her relationship with Lady Featherington. And I think she would have been more careful and cautious about how she went about that. And a 9 just kind of has that, that observer and like set of tones. Like, how do I win people over to get me the most amount of peace? And she absolutely never did that. She wasn't like very convincing. She didn't give a beautiful speech about how she just was like, I'm not moving. This is what's happening. And I think kind of made decisions in a way a little more flippantly than someone with a 9, that someone with a 7 would be more prone to than a 9 wing. That's all I mean. I'm not saying I totally understand that the 8 wins the 9 a lot of times in 8 wing 9s, and that's why you would be one or the other with the wing. But I think that's where that piece came from.
Yeah, I can see it in the kind of, I don't know if it's like reckless, but it's kind of like brash. It's not like thinking things through as much as just like going with it in the way that like I think the 7 gives that, whereas the 9 gives the pause and the like composure and the okay, let's think about this and how am I gonna address this. So I could see that. I think it's like an 8 in pen and then like a wing 7 in pencil, because I'm like, I don't think she leans on her wing a lot. But I can see that. I can come to that conclusion.
Okay. Well, then I think that wraps up our entire series on Bridgerton for season 1 of Bridgerton.
Wow. It's definitely interesting to just be like, okay, we did it. It's Bridgerton. Now we get to move on to something else, which is kind of exciting. So much variety.
It is very exciting. It's so exciting. I'm happy to be here and happy to be talking through so many properties with you. Next, we're going to a cult classic, fan favorite, The Office.
Oh my goodness. Taking a trip to Dunder Mifflin. Scranton, Pennsylvania.
We're from like ornate and beautiful to like so mundane and casual. I'm really excited.
Yeah, the production quality is a little bit different between like the Regency balls and then like the conference room parties.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so excited next week to talk about Michael, Dwight, and Angela.
What a group. Michael Scott, that's going to be an interesting one. Yes.
We have a lot of feelings about The Office, so please stay tuned and stick with us next week. We cannot wait.
Awesome. Well, until then, I will talk to you next week.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Typecasting. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at TypecastingPod, where you can vote in our weekly polls. Leave a review and be sure to join us next week when we take on more pop culture by the numbers.